Why do you think a story like The Devil Wears Prada continues to endure? The first film has not only remained a fan favorite for those who saw it 20 years ago, but it continues to gain new ones with each generation.
You don't ever know. And that's sort of the good news and the bad news. You don't ever know when you're working on something. You can only see whether it speaks to you.
William Goldman got it right. Nobody knows anything. And, we certainly didn't know. And to this day, we don't know what was the secret. And all we can do is sort of do our best work and hope that it gets even half the enthusiasm that the first movie still gets.
What do you hope fans take away from the new film?
Joy.
Yeah.
Joy.
A great time.
Yeah. Like just laughs, tears. I always say, gee, I just want the audience to get that feeling where your chest feels like it's swelling, when you watch a movie and you wow, this was 2 hours that made my life bigger.
Yeah, I think that there was a spirit of love and connection in this movie, especially about how humans need each other in the world that we're in and in the challenges that we're in, that we still need each other. And it's really the first time that we're seeing Miranda kind of asks for someone to help her and for someone to support her. And she does it in her way. But I think, in this world, this really is about how the pursuit of a shared professional goal can bring people together.
What was the writing process like on this film? Was it tricky getting back into the minds of these characters and figuring out how each character would have evolved over the years?
I wouldn't say tricky. I would say thrilling and exciting and fun and joyful and fast. And, one of the real joys of the first movie was, David and I didn't know each other. We met and we were like off to the races on the first movie. And we just discovered that we had a very simpatico idea about what that first movie should be. And then having been buddies for 20 years and sort of going back to do this, we had such a shorthand. And, these movies are built with the foundations of this are built with David and I talking, and those conversations about that, are about the movie, but are free flowing and end up being about life and the world and priorities and, what we think and what we're reading and what sports we watched and what sports we didn't watch. And, just sort of having all those conversations. So being back in that space was really fun. And, working with one of my very favorite collaborators and somebody who was such a wonderful mentor to me the first time around, and just being invited back into that conversation. So my answer is I had no challenges.
In your sleep.
Yes.
David, was the process of directing the sequel easier or harder for you, knowing how much anticipation was behind
Much
this film?
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. Skipping through the woods.
I considered it harder than the first one. The first one was a very difficult movie to make. We had enormous challenges. We always went over schedule, over budget. We had struggled to find locations. We're discovering the characters. Aline was rewriting everything on the day, and this one, we had a brilliant script from the beginning. The actors all knew their parts, and yet the scale of it and the just sort of crushing level of meeting expectations just felt really demanding every day.
Yeah.
I know you've likely seen folks here and there over the years, but what was it like reuniting with this cast as a whole after 20 years?
Well, it's funny, when you work with somebody, it's sort of like you used to play tennis together every day, and then when you bump into them, you don't play tennis. You just sort of say hello. And the thing that you enjoyed doing with them was playing tennis. And so that was what I was saying about getting to work with David again. Like, we had fun hanging out and being buddies and having meals and hanging out, but it was really fun to go back into like creating something together. And we both love these actors and always happy to see them in the intervening years, but to be able to roll your sleeves back up, which is how we met them, and sort of roll your sleeves back up and get back into the work. That's a lot of what the movie's about, right? Is the joy of working with other people and collaborating.
As we are, I'm sure, to them, they are really such different people. They're in such different places. Andy and Emily were girls when they made they were, 22 years old. Now they have, long marriages and beautiful kids, and their priorities have shifted. They're huge movie stars, and even Meryl is in a very different place personally and professionally. Stanley has, gone through a lot.
He's a
married,
cultural icon.
And married Emily's sister. So many transformations have taken place, and yet, when we all got in a room together for the first time, it really felt like family. And there was, the shorthand came back really quickly, the trust, and that meant that everybody could play, and the experience was joyful.
The Devil Wears Prada became an instant phenomenon when it debuted 20 years ago. Why is now the right time for a sequel?
Well, we don't know if it's the right time for a sequel. We certainly hope so. I think that
it was the right time to work on a sequel, but it took us 18 years to make that decision. I think for a long time, we just felt like there was no way these characters belonged back in the same world, that they, Andy threw the phone in the fountain at the end of the first one, and Miranda would never hire her again, and, never the twain shall meet. But times change and the world has evolved, and that exploring the changed world of journalism and media seemed really interesting to us, and how Miranda would face the challenges of an evolving industry, and Andy, somehow needing a job became an interesting way into telling that story. And so we'll find out if this is the right time for a sequel.